Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Big Ten Watchdog News Podcast. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Graham Dinas.
And I'm Taylor Seamer.
All right, before we get into it, just like last episode, make sure that you guys give us a like and a subscribe on this video. Leave any comments if you have any questions or concerns or recommendations. We have a playlist up with all of our videos, our first three episodes, and this is episode 4. So they are all posted. Make sure you follow us on TikTok. We have a lot of good stuff happening on TikTok as well as Twitter. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter. That's where we are the most active. A lot of game by game breakdowns. More specific stuff happens on Twitter, and then we give our overview here on the podcast. But definitely give us a follow on Twitter, follow on TikTok, like the video, and subscribe. All right, let's get into it. Our first headline of the week: the Indiana Hoosiers are on a roll. They've won 7 of 8 after dropping 3 in a row. They played on Saturday at home at Assembly Hall against number 1 Purdue. Everyone watched that game of the week, and they pulled out a 5-point win. Trace Jackson Davis had a great game. It was the duel we all expected, and then they followed that up by playing the other team that's highly regarded as probably one of the 3 best teams in the conference, in Rutgers, again at home. They won that one 66-60. Great games both ways. What are your thoughts on either game, both games? What do you got, Taylor?
I'll start with the Purdue game. That's fine. It happened first. That first half was an Indiana team or basketball team in general that I've never seen or I haven't seen in a couple years from anybody. They looked like, they could have been playing a national championship level there at that game. They were just blowing the doors off the number 1 team. It was like 15 at half, or I think, or 20, something like that. Crazy.
It was
It was
15. They put up 50. It was 50-35 lead going into
Yeah,
that
I
game.
was
I
like, they're
remember
on
that.
pace for 100 against the number 1 team in the country. I was like, what has happened to this team in the past 2 weeks? And then they go and do the same thing again to Rutgers. And I was like, this team is for all the hype they got this offseason, they struggled early. And I was like, okay, it's another one of these situations where they talk up a team, but the team really isn't that good. But I see the hype now. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's there, and I
Is it
really like them.
palpable?
It's palpable. What'd you
Because
see?
yeah, no, this team, like you said, they had their struggles. They dropped 3 in a row, a month ago, and they turned it around. I was there for them turning it around against Illinois, and then yeah, they've just been rolling ever since. They had the one off game against Maryland, but again, that's Big Ten on the road, and I think that may have something to do with their results this past week. They got 2 home wins against the 2 best teams in the conference. This weekend they're going to go to Chrysler on
They are,
Saturday.
yes.
So
Yes.
that'll be a test, I think, for both teams. That'll be, are each of these teams, are they for real? Is what we're hyping them up to be at this moment, is that, accurate? I think that's what we're going to see.
Yeah, I think it's a showdown of 2 teams tied for second place. Michigan, obviously, you could say is maybe the worst of the teams, but they're playing at home. Indiana's got something to prove. They want to show that they really are the top team. And Michigan needs a marquee win, and this is one way to do it. I'm looking forward to this Saturday.
And they're doing it all still without Xavier Johnson, who I know I don't think he's been dressing, but he's been out there during warmups. I wonder if he'll get some run on Saturday. If not, they're going to have him as they get into the stretch here towards the end of February. And, having an upperclassman leader that's been a part of the program at the point guard position is so important. That's going to make this team even better than what they're currently showing.
Yeah, guard play is really important, especially if you want to go deep in March. And they're playing this good now. What's an upperclassman guard coming back? He's fresh, hasn't played all year. He's ready to go. Watch out.
And that back in the Rutgers game, that Hood Shafino layup,
Oh my
I don't know
gosh.
if everyone knows the play I'm talking about, but you should. It was on all over Sports Center, all over Twitter. That layup was absurd. The behind the back gather to the jelly, and then the chuck it up finish over his head gets fouled, and
I'm not sure he could see the rim when he let go or at any point during the last 3 seconds of the shot. And somehow it just drops right in. Oh my. It
that's
was
how you
something to
know.
see.
That's how you know a player is special. Like there are players that play hard. There are players that are very very talented, and then there are guys like that come in with all this hype, and you see in those plays why they get all that hype coming out of high school. That was incredible.
Yeah, it looked like they were the Harlem Globetrotters out there, but it was
Absurd,
Indiana Hoosiers.
absurd finish. Taylor, you posed the question. Is Indiana the top dog in the Big Ten now? What are your thoughts on what's your answer to that question?
Standings wise, clearly they're 3.5 back, but that's just because Purdue got such a hot start. I think it might be too much to make up in the regular season. But come Big Ten tournament time, I would put my money on Indiana to win that.
Ooh,
Would you agree? You think they're not top dog?
I mean, Purdue is. I just think they're so far ahead of the field at this point. I mean, they lost by 5 or on the road, so that's about reasonable, what you'd expect. I think Purdue's still my top dog, but I think Indiana has taken a step above everyone else for number 2. And
I don't even
think
know if you
that's
can call it
debatable.
number 2. I think I would say like 1A, 1B.
Yeah,
Really,
it's an interesting point. You're going to see them live on. Are you going on Saturday?
I'll be there. Yeah.
Okay, so you'll get to see what I saw.
I'll get to see if they're the real deal or not. If
Yeah,
we can
you
slow
get to
down
watch
Trace Jackson Davis.
Jackson Davis and Hunter Dickinson duke it out for 40 minutes. That'll be a good one.
But yeah, they don't have Terrace Reed coming off the bench though. We got 2 guys. We got 10 fouls to give
okay.
to slow down TJD. We'll see if it happens.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to. We talked last week extensively about the Illinois-Iowa game that was to come, and all of the on the court, off the court aspects. That game, I think it lived up to the hype. I think.
Yeah, I thought it was a good game. Yeah,
it was a really good game. It was a rivalry aspect. There was some chirping going on between Matt Meyer and Connor McCaffrey that I enjoyed seeing. I really wish I could have known what Matt said to him.
There was some chirping on Twitter too going on before the game.
Yeah.
There was I forget. Sincere Harris maybe tweeted something.
He tweeted something about the student section. I remember whenever they made I believe their first note to the world. He was like, "This is crazy," and then he probably backed off after he learned all the details. Either way, 81-79, Iowa gets the win at home. Very high scoring game. I predicted a low scoring game, and I thought that would favor Illinois, and it turned out to be a high scoring game, which favored Iowa. And
favored 2 points. It's not like they beat you by 20. I mean,
no, it was
2 points. It could go either way at that.
I have this notice down here on the bottom. I noticed that this was our first loss since Maryland, which was at the beginning of December, that I can look at the game and say we could have won this game. Our other losses, the Missouri game, the Northwestern game, the Penn State game, and the Indiana game, like
your team just fell apart.
Yeah. It was a come apart on the court. But this game, we could have won this game. No one played particularly poorly. I think it was a pretty good all around team effort, and they just exploited one weakness, which was Tony Perkins in the high ball screen coming off and shooting the pick and pop, he comes off the screen and shoots the mid-range jumper. His numbers on that shot this season have not been particularly high, and he goes out and he shoots, I believe, like 8 of 11 from the field, and then he goes 15 of 16 from the line. Game of his life. It was an incredible game for him, and that's what made the difference. He misses, one of those shots where it's a whole different game down the stretch. He was lethal. It was, infuriating to watch. But if that's the shot he doesn't hit, you let him have that shot, but you can't, fully change the game plan, even though he was lethal. I don't know. It's where do you stand on the debate of, when you're a coach, how often do you need to change your game plan if someone gets hot, or do you stick with it? And Brad stuck with his game plan, and Tony beat us. It happens.
It burnt you for just enough points to beat you by 2.
Exactly. And then looking more at the Orange Crush stuff, they claimed the game was a sellout, and so they gave the tickets away. Then there are pictures that were released. There were several upper level seats that were just completely bare. Like the section that I think the Crush were supposed to sit in, there was like maybe 7 or 8 people sitting in it out of 200 seats that were bought. So there's that. And then we have the Cedar Rapids Boys and Girls Club that was brought out to mid court during one of the media breaks. And, you know, there was 24 kids that were out there. I thought that was, and I get it. If you're the Cedar Rapids Boys and Girls Club, you know, you have to take a trip to Iowa City on 2 days' notice. But
Yeah, but I mean, all 200 tickets weren't going just to kids. I mean, they had to get people like in there to watch the kids. They probably gave it to their parents so they could be with their kids.
I mean,
It wasn't just 200 kids, but
they were all out on the court though, and it was at most 40 people.
did they walk everybody? I don't know. I didn't see the picture. I'm questioning.
It was interesting. They didn't sell it out, and I don't know if I particularly enjoy the idea of bringing them out on the court. You know,
it was a good troll job.
It was they did a good job. I gave them that they did a good job poking fun, but you know, these kids have no idea.
They don't know what's going on.
They don't know the intent. So
yeah. They don't know what's going
on. Either way, what's most important now is that both of these teams were 7-5 after this in the conference. Illinois is still there because their game on Tuesday got canceled against Minnesota, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, I guess. But Iowa lost to Purdue on Thursday night, so
it was pretty close, actually, closer than I thought it would be.
It was, but then they stretched it out. It got to 14.
They pulled it at the end, but
so 87-73 was that final. They're 7-6 now. So yeah, I mean, we've said this a million times. It's a buzzsaw in the middle of this conference. No one is particularly interested in taking a step ahead of anyone else. So yeah, I mean, each win counts, and we'll talk about that more here in a second as well. But next, let's talk about the new conference Stephen Curry in Keisei Tominaga, who has just he's gone ballistic this last week. I think he scored 11 whenever he came into Champaign, and he had like 3 steals. He was a pest. But then on Saturday, I believe it was Saturday or Sunday, they played a home game against Penn State, and they won it by 9. And Tominaga goes for a 30 ball, shooting 12 of 18 from the field and 5 of 10 from 3. And then he followed that up with the game that you saw at Chrysler, where he goes for 24 with 10 buckets on 62% shooting and another 50% outing from 3, going 4 for 8. What did you see in particular that makes him, that has made him such a special Big Ten player here this past week?
I mean, dude can flat out shoot the ball. I watched him in warmups. And when I got there, he was already on a streak, and I started counting, and he got to 8 before he missed. And that was not all of the ones he had made when I walked in the door. From top of the key, slightly towards the right wing. I mean, the dude, his stroke is pure. I mean, it's there, and he doesn't need much space to get it off either. He can take, a couple inches. If you're not right there, he's letting it fly because he knows he can make it. And he's one of the best backdoor cutters in the conference. And I think he probably had 4 or 5 of those baskets were just off. Either he caught the ball just one dribble and got right past you coming off a cut, or he just took a step, went right back door, and they threw it to him for a layup. I mean, easy points, and he put up 30 and 24 of them for both games. He knows how to shoot the ball. I mean, he's on the national team for Japan. I mean, he's good. If he was playing anywhere else, or if he had another piece, this team would be amazing. I mean, he's an asset. I'd want him on my team.
And they're dealing with injuries, so they do have a couple pieces. Juwan Gary is like their best defender, and he's not there. So, I mean, this Nebraska team, we said it initially that they looked like they could win some games in the conference. I mean, they're 4-10. They have won a couple. They're ahead of Ohio State.
Yeah, and they're at 11 wins now which is the first time Hoiberg's done that in the 4 years he's been there. And they still have a couple games left that are easily winnable, so he can get up to 13, 14, 15 wins if
They
he
may
wants.
get to wear the white jerseys on Wednesday in the playing games.
They might even.
That's I doubt that he's been able to do that since he's been there.
No, no way. He hasn't.
Yeah. And then back to Keisei. I feel like just watching him play, he's just moving on a different plane than everyone else, is how I describe it. I feel like he's extremely slippery. Everyone else, coming from America, basketball is played the American way, and you see this in the Olympics when teams of NBA role players come out and they play a different brand of basketball, and it gives us fits. And we have enough talent to overcome that. But you see Patty Mills go for, he's averaging 27 in the Olympics, and he's, the ninth man on the Nets right now.
Yeah,
So,
I think
go ahead. Yeah.
I think the way that they teach basketball here is very rigid. You take a step and then you go. He kind of just, slippery is the perfect word for it. He just slides through. Like, he doesn't need to take direct angles. He can kind of curve them and just make you think he's going one way and slide around through the other way. It's different, and I like it. I wish we would do more of it. But
just having that ability makes you good, but it probably doesn't earn you a ton of minutes in a league like the Big Ten. But whenever you can stroke it like he does, like at Steph Curry, Jimmer Fredette levels, he that makes for a special player and someone that you just have to scout differently than everyone else, and it's hard to imitate that in your practices leading up to the games. If this team ends up making a tournament, while he is there, that's going to be something that teams in other conferences have no comparison for.
Yeah, I think it'll be something they'll struggle with. I mean, teams in the Big Ten struggle with it, and they have all the film and experience playing against it. People who don't have that, it's going to be even. Yeah, I think if they can make a tournament somewhere, he could be the guy that leads the team. The nobody that brings a Cinderella team to 2 wins or so.
Yeah, I agree, and they're fun to watch, this Nebraska team, because they're missing pieces, but they play and they have fun out there. They guard you, or they try to guard you, and they have Keisei Tominaga and Sam Griesel as a 6'7" point guard. Like they have a lot of interesting pieces that are hard to emulate in a practice setting, and so that's what makes them, I feel like, a little bit tougher than what the pieces on paper would tell you.
Yeah, and I mean, they have a dude named Wilhelm, and
that
is all you need to know. That dude,
Wilhelm
he was the only guy in the positive for that team in the plus minus.
Our Barstool page put out a tweet that was everyone make sure your ladies are protected tonight because Wilhelm Bradenbach is in the building.
Yeah, I mean, can we just take a pause to admire the all name team that is the Nebraska Cornhuskers? Emmanuel, Wilhelm. They got a dude named Denham, like a whole gene. Okay, they got let's see, they got a dude named Kale, like named after a plant. A dude named Oleg. Okay, like come on, tell me, like Keisei. I mean, tell me these guys. This is not the all name team for the Big Ten. Is all on the Cornhuskers.
Yeah, you just got
so fun to watch.
Ragtag group of misfits that go out and they stir up trouble in the middle of the conference. That's what they're doing, and it's enjoyable to watch them play because it's different than everyone else. All right, and our final headline here. We did this a couple of weeks ago where we kind of looked at who we thought would get the double buys in the Big Ten tournament. But since we're a couple of weeks closer now, we're going to take another in-depth look, what to make from all of the ties in the middle of the conference at 8-5, at 7-6. So Taylor, what do you have there?
Yeah, so there's currently 4 teams tied for second, and then there's 4 teams that are 7-5 or 7-6. And then 1 team right behind them at 6-7. Trying to get that double bye is going to be like trying to escape, I don't know, the house in Friday the 13th or something. I mean, it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be something you're going to have to truly fight for, and you still might get put down to the single bye. I mean, it's going to be something, especially with the teams that are up there. I mean, obviously Northwestern and Michigan are seen as not contenders, but I mean, they're 8-5 just like the rest of them. And I mean, I wouldn't want to be up there. I mean, that's something that, I mean, going in every night, 8-5, they know you're in second place. They know you're up there. They're going to give you your best shot. And that's not something I would want to be fighting every night, but that's what teams are struck with. And as to who's going to get it, I'd say, I don't know, Purdue is going to take it because they're 3.5 games up with only 5 to go or so, 6. So they're going to get that there. Indiana and Rutgers, I think, are safe. I don't know if I really like Northwestern or Michigan to take the other one. I think they'll easily get single buys, but I'm still high on Maryland even though they lost. They went to Breslin and lost by 3.
It was 5.
5?
I think it was 63.
Lost by 5 in the Breslin. And they're only 1 game back of the 8-5 group at second place. I think they might have a legit shot at that. What do you think?
I think they do have a legit shot. I just, like, whenever I look at that team, for whatever reason, I see them being, a 5 or a 6 seed. And it's just like I see them splitting enough of the rest of the schedule. I don't see them like going out and sweeping and ending up getting the 4 or the 3. I could see the 2 teams that I'm kind of locked in on that could get that last double bye would be Illinois and Iowa that could take it.
Iowa, that's an interesting one that I haven't heard.
I think
often.
they could. Both of those teams could get hot and win. However many are left, 5 of the next 6, and they could take it at whatever 12-8 or 13-7. I think that's doable, and I think that's the number. I would guess probably 12-8. There will probably be a tie at 12-8, and I bet that would be about 4 or 5 if I had to guess. I think either of those teams could do it. The difference
I think
is
all those teams could finish at 12-8. You could have like a 9-way tie between 2nd and 11th place or whatever at 12-8 because they're all within a game of each other and they all have to play each other. So
yeah, the difference is the tiebreaker in the Big Ten is your record against the people you're tied with. Correct? That's the first tiebreaker.
That's the first record.
So it's all about how good you are against the teams that you're compared to. So you have to beat the teams that you're fighting with every night. If you drop some of those games, it's not going to you're hurting yourself and your chances because it is inevitably going to be a tie for that 4th spot. And so Illinois has lost a lot of games to those teams up there. So they would have to probably finish a game ahead of everyone. I think, who else? There was another team, I think maybe Iowa or Michigan State has lost to a lot of those middle of the pack teams. The difference is you have Northwestern has beat a lot of them. Iowa has, they're coming around. Maryland is kind of in the middle. I think when you look at Michigan's beat a lot of the teams in there. They're right there at the top of that list. So it's tough. I could see Michigan being a team that gets hot and ends up taking that double bye as well. And then even with getting the double bye, they have to go and they still are fighting for their tournament life in the conference tournament.
Yeah, but I think if they get the double bye, they'll have enough wins to get them in.
They might not though, because
well,
if you're at
their
12,
remaining schedule is probably the hardest of any team in the Big Ten.
That's true. I forgot.
They have 2 against Indiana, 2 against Wisconsin, plus Michigan State, Rutgers, and Illinois. That's got to be the hardest. What is that? 7 games of anybody left.
Sure.
So if they win 4 of those, I mean, then that'll give them 3 more quad 1 wins and a double bye in the Big Ten tournament. I can't imagine they're not in there.
Yeah, at that point, if you win enough of those, you're probably looking at about a 10 seed.
Yeah,
that'd be where I'd stick that team in.
And if they're playing good enough, like they are recently, winning like here 3 in a row now, that would be a scary 10 seed, at least for 1, maybe 2 games.
Yeah, I agree. And they would probably have the best player on the court. In most 7-10 matchups, I would imagine Hunter Dickinson is going to be a matchup problem for a lot of teams. let's get into our Big Ten spotlight since we're talking about them. This week, we do have the Michigan Wolverines as the team that we're going in depth with, luckily for Taylor. This past week, what they've done, they beat Ohio State on CBS by 8 at home, 77-69. And then on Wednesday, like we said, they beat Tominaga and Nebraska 93-72. Taylor was at both of those games. It was their first 3-game win streak, you said, since the start of the season.
Since the first 3 games. They started 3-0, and then they haven't won 3 in a row since.
So that's a positive sign. And again, they've all been home games, right? Or no?
No,
you beat
that Northwestern
on the
Northwestern
road.
was on the road.
That's your big win, probably of the season to this point. So yeah. Anyway, what have you seen that has spurred this hot streak here?
Guys playing as a team, as a unit. Before it was always Hunter would go off for one game, but he would only get 25 and wouldn't be enough. The next game, Jet would go off and he'd get 25, but it wouldn't be enough. The next game, Buffkin would go off for 25 and it wouldn't be enough. But in the last week with these 3 games, I mean, everybody's been playing together. I mean, in the Nebraska game, all 5 starters plus a guy on the bench was in double digits. The ball's moving. The ball's going in the basket. We struggled for weeks. We'd get open shots and just couldn't make them. Now we're making open shots, which makes the game of basketball so much easier. I think just playing together as a unit in the past week has been what's made the difference. And Juwan has made so much better rotations. Like, we had people out there who just didn't fit together, but now we've got guys who play together. They throw the ball. They're comfortable with each other, and I think that's helped.
That's where I was going, was Juwan, because he's had his issues early in seasons every year except for our senior year of high school, the 2021 season where they got the 1 seed. He's had issues. He started slow, and I noticed that you're seeing a lot of different rotations, and he's testing out what works and what doesn't, and it's kind of infuriating to see him still doing that 17 games into the season. But his team last year in particular, they started to get hot down the stretch, and that's what it appears this team is doing. It's just it's taking him a little too long, I feel like, to get his team into a groove, but it's always better to get into the groove at the end rather than, rise too soon.
Yeah, I would agree. I would much rather be hot at the end of the season. I mean, that's when games are most important anyways, but you can't get hot too late into the season to where you're so far behind you can't make the tournament and use the hotness that you've created. You've got to win enough in the beginning to when you get hot, you're already in, you're ready to go. And that's
the issue right now, is that he's really pushing the line of how late into the season can I go before I start to lock in and get this team playing as a tournament level team. And he has now, and he has the toughest schedule of the season up ahead. And
but I think Saturday is the deciding factor. If they play, even if they lose by 1-2 points, they play really good. I think they can go get a win at home against Wisconsin. They can get a win at home against Michigan State. They can go steal one of them on the road of Rutgers, Illinois, or Wisconsin, and then that's all they're going to need there. I don't know. I just need it to keep going. You can't get these 3 wins and think you're good, and then you fall off the cliff again. It's hard to get back up. You got to keep it going.
Agreed. That's where I was going to go with it. He's built this team up now to play the toughest part of his schedule at their highest level. Now it's the test of, is this team good enough at its highest level to be a tournament team, despite, obviously the talent is there, but is it enough to overcome the slow start?
And we'll see tomorrow night. What is that? 6 p.m. Eastern? 6:30, I think.
Yeah, 6.
6 Eastern. 6 Eastern.
On 5 Central on ESPN for people
it's a big game.
Wanting to view at home. You can see Taylor on TV potentially.
Might be able to. I'll be down in the lower bowl.
Yeah.
Just going to throw it out.
All right, let's move on. We are into the tournament rankings now. Once again, I don't have a complete bracket. I don't have matchups, but I do have seed lines. So that's an improvement over last week. So we'll jump right into it, try and get this done rather quickly. Obviously, we have Minnesota staying at 14, and then Nebraska, who we talked about in great detail earlier, at 13 still, just enough of a tier below of everyone else to where, we're unlikely to see those two numbers change for the end of the season. But we have a team, Michigan has jumped up, and Ohio State has now bumped down to this 12 spot. What did they do this past week? I know they lost last night to Northwestern.
Yes, and they lost to us.
That's right. So just the spiral downward continues.
They've only
People are-
won three conference games. Yeah,
They're 3-10.
and those were the early in the season. They've lost quite a few in a row.
Yeah, Chris Holtman's job is, people are saying he's on the hot seat. I don't know if he necessarily should be, but whenever you haven't had a ton of tournament success in your first 5 or 6 years with the program, and now you have a team that has talent, that looked so good at the start of the season, this is kind of what you don't want to happen. This is the opposite of Michigan.
Yeah, they looked really good. Like they were going to be the team to come through the conference, and then they've nosedived.
And I noticed against you guys, at least, that Sensabaugh came off the bench despite being the leading scorer.
He did, yes, and I thought that was surprising. I noticed that.
So
Interesting.
I don't know if that's an internal problem. I don't know if that's we're just trying to change the mojo up. But like we said, it seems like since he stepped up and became the true number one guy, that's when the team has started to lose these games. And so it's interesting that you have a guy that's as talented, but he's not leading you to wins. But the rest of the crew probably isn't good enough to win games in the Big Ten either way. So it's tough, but I would say officially they're out. I don't think, unless if they win the tournament, they're out.
I would say that they are out.
Moving up one spot up to number 11, finally escaping the bottom three is Michigan. We talked about them. They're up to 52 in KenPom. The net ranking has them at 64, and they're 63rd in strength of record. They are swiftly approaching bubble territory.
I don't know, man. I'd say they're on the bubble. They're on the edge of the bubble, but they're on it. They made the teams considered section of Lenardi's post.
Yep.
And Net, KenPom, and SOR have them in the top 68. So
well,
I mean,
but you have
if you're taking the top 68, then
conference champions.
I'm aware, but you look at the top 68, they're moving up.
I think my cut line, I think the last is team number 46, I believe is where I have it. So that's kind of the range you want to get to. And I think this team is capable of it. They're probably sitting somewhere around the 60 range. And so they have a couple spots to move up, but like we said, this team has the talent to do it.
I think they're above Penn State too. I mean, we beat them once. We went their place and lost close. I don't know. I think even though Penn State is a spot above them here next, I think that they are really the team up, and
if
the
you
rest
take
of the
a look
season
at
will show. But
the trajectories of each team, Penn State, another team that's kind of struggled this past week with the Nebraska loss, and then they had a home loss to Wisconsin in overtime on Wednesday. They're like the difference in my metric between Penn State and Michigan is a third of a point. So they're right there. They're likely just one spot ahead of Michigan on that list. And, with the head-to-head split, you could argue either way. But, yeah, the net has them just like 2 spots higher. They're at the current juncture, I would say that they're fairly, like their resumes would be equal. And I would expect Michigan to continue to rise while Penn State is unfortunately falling because, like we said, they're super fun to watch. Moving along to number 9, we are officially on the bubble, and we have Wisconsin, who is my third team out of the field. They are at 51.6 is the number for my metric. They're the 49th team overall. Net has them at 72, but strength of record has them at 39. They moved up a spot. They jumped Penn State because they beat them on the road. That's a big win. And that could go a long way for their tournament hopes. But I think this team needs to continue to win games that they're not the favorite in the regular season, because I'm not sure if this team has enough to to win this conference tournament.
Yeah, I think Wisconsin on paper, like the talent guys that they have are good. They just haven't put it together yet, I feel like. And that has caused them to lose some games they probably shouldn't have, which is putting them on the bubble. But if they can play well, I think they'll make the tournament. It's just that they haven't put it together. And I don't know what the fix for that is, but yeah.
Greg Gard's a great coach. You have what they've done on paper would be enough to get them in, but the net and the KenPom and KPI and metrics like that aren't huge fans of that team. I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before or not, but I was expecting a pretty big leap from Chucky Hepburn, the Johnny Davis type leap, and he's been good, but he hasn't been spectacular. He hasn't made that leap. So I think if they want to elevate themselves to a team that, is not playing in one of those first 4 games or getting a 1 seed in the NIT, that's the move that needs to be made. All right, number 8, we've got Northwestern. They had a great week. They're one of the teams tied at 8-5. Who'd they beat during the weekend? Do you remember? I know
They beat Ohio State.
They beat
just
Ohio
recently.
State last night on Thursday. And then over
Yeah.
the weekend, they played. Who did they play?
They played Michigan last Thursday, but they played
Yeah.
Wisconsin and beat them. That's right.
That's right. Okay, yeah, because they played twice in 10 days and they got the
Yes.
sweep. So
Yes.
that's huge. I had them out, I believe, last week, maybe, or they were approaching out territory. But they're in my last 4 buys, so they'd be an 11 seed. I believe I have them at number 41 overall. So they'd be the best 11 seed. So yeah, a lot of good to come from that Northwestern team, and we've said it countless times. Bowie and IDs are clicking. That team is almost unbeatable. Moving up, actually, despite getting a win against Illinois, but then losing to Purdue, moving down a spot is Iowa, who sits as a 9. And this really has nothing to do with how Iowa played in particular, just how the rest of the conference played, because the middle of the pack is so tight. I have them as a 9 seed. KenPom has them at 32, and Strength of Record has them at 37. This team is so offensively gifted that
very defensively challenged.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of offensively they're rivaling Purdue, I'd imagine, for best team in the conference. But you see defensively that it's not enough and it doesn't travel all the time. Like the defense doesn't travel, or defense travels, offense doesn't. Your shot, whatever. I messed it up. I messed up the saying. But yeah, this team could go for a 90 ball on you at any point. And in the tournament, as an 8-9 game, that's a winnable game, and then as a 1 seed, that's a scary 9 seed.
It is, especially if they're shooting well. Because they're going to put up 80. If they're, on an average night, a bad night they put up 70, a good night they put up 80, or in an average night they put up 80, and a good night they put up 90. So you better hope it's not Houston at the one that they catch, because Houston doesn't score.
Yeah, but so that would be a fun game. Strength on strength there. But yeah, and they're a team that could, like I said, get up to that double bye, and potentially they have a shot to win the tournament in the conference tournament like they did last year. Number 6, also moving down a spot, is Maryland. This week they went into the barn in Minnesota and won by 35, just a demolition of that team. And then they had the tough loss in Breslin to Michigan State. So I believe last week the number that I had for them was 34.6. They're down to 36, so probably moved down a spot or 2, but still looking at a 9 seed. And again, another Big Ten 8-9 seed that I wouldn't want to play.
No, they've got guys who are physical down low. They've got guys who can shoot the ball. They play defense. And, they're right in the pack of the Big Ten, the best basketball conference in the country. So it's going to be not one I would want to play either, although I think they might be an easier off than Iowa. But, You never
more
know.
consistent or less consistent, but like their ceiling isn't as high in a one
Correct.
game sample as Iowa. All right, moving on to 5. Dropping 3 spots on the list is Illinois. I had them at 2 last week. The fall wasn't too big, just like I said, it's so tightly packed. They're an 8 seed, which I believe I had them as like a 6 last week. So 26th in the net and Ken Palm. The resume has them at 34, and I think they were mostly just hurt by not getting a home game against Minnesota this week, which I
Do we
know.
have a makeup on that?
Yeah, it's not next Monday, but the 20th.
Okay.
So I know you had some thoughts on the cancellation. Is there anything you want to share?
Yeah, because you seem to think that they should be forced to play it. If they don't have enough guys to play and a suitable date can be found, I think you should just move it to the suitable date. If no suitable date can be found, I understand you take the forfeit, you weren't ready to play. But would you agree with that, or do you have
I
something
I
different?
don't know. I don't want to force anyone to play, but I feel like if you have 5 or 6 guys, that if that's enough to play, then you should play. And it also depends on how healthy is the rest of the team, because you don't want to spread it across the conference like we've said. The My issue is that the Big Ten, we talked about this whenever Northwestern got canceled. They issued at the beginning of the season the policy that if you have to forfeit a game, it's going to result in a loss, in a forfeit loss. And I don't want a forfeit loss against Minnesota or a forfeit win. I would prefer to play them, but it's just kind of annoying that now our schedule, where we're playing 3 games in 6 days, whenever we could have had, and we've just had a full week off between games now. So if
Yeah, but I don't know. You don't want. I don't know. I personally don't want 3 walk-ons and 2 scholarship guys playing an entire 40 minutes against a team of 13 that is all scholarship players. I mean, because that's not going to be a valid representation of either team either, and it's going to skew your numbers.
I
So
mean,
taking the forfeit loss skews your numbers. I just play the game. Find a day to play the game and play the game.
I feel like when you play Minnesota, you're essentially getting 3 walk-ons and 2 scholarship guys.
I mean,
Um,
you are, but at least you're playing the game and earning it rather than forcing them to play when they're not ready.
I don't have a huge problem with this issue. It's just if we go out, I think we'll beat Minnesota either way. But if we lose to Minnesota, I would change my mind immediately. And then if we lose that game the following Thursday, which I don't remember, I think it might be Northwestern again. If we drop that game and we have guys getting in foul trouble because they're tired on defense, then there's a reason. But again, I would prefer for a resume building win over Minnesota, even like as likely as it is that helps you on your resume. I would prefer a true win over a forfeit win. All right, moving up 3 spots to number 4 is Michigan State. Now, Michigan State, they lost to Rutgers, I believe, over the weekend, but then they got the home win over Maryland. That wasn't particularly convincing, but still, they jump Illinois, Maryland, and Iowa to get to number 4.
Yeah, I think it's a big jump for them. I wasn't expecting to see them move up 3 spots. I figured they'd move up because I mean, a loss to Rutgers is not a bad loss. Rutgers is good, and you beat Maryland at home. But 3 spots was kind of surprising to me.
It's again, it's not a true 3 spots in the sense, because they moved up. Like the team where they were at last week would be 6th this week. It's just everyone kind of shifted together, and Michigan State's win just propelled them over these teams that have lost their last game, because Illinois has lost their last game, Iowa has, and Maryland has. So Michigan State coming off a win, just like they're ever so slightly ahead of Illinois. They're also an 8 seed. Um, it's just like I said, we've said it countless times that the middle of the pack in the Big Ten is
everybody's so close that one movement is going to put you so
A
far.
three spot jump is essentially meaningless in the middle of the conference.
Yeah, they've got Ohio State and Minnesota back to back coming up, so I see them only rising.
That would be
at
that'd
least
be massive for them. Yeah.
through this week. Next week it's a little tougher, but then they close the season pretty easily too. So,
And then I have in a true tie, I guess, for third, because their number was the same, and my tiebreaker is the net ranking. Rutgers is number 3. They jump, or I guess they jumped Illinois, so they moved up 1 spot to 3. 17th in Ken Palm, the second best team by Ken Palm. 38th strength of record is what's holding them down as an 8 seed. I feel as if they probably won't end up as an 8 seed. I think the committee will value playing in this conference a little higher than what the metric does. And I think probably all these teams that are, they'll probably all move up a seed line or 2. But for now, my metric has Rutgers as an 8.
I think 8's a little low, but I do think they're the third best team in the conference. So I do like them above Michigan State. They're 8-5, tied with Indiana, Michigan, and who's the other one?
Northwestern.
Northwestern. There you go. Yeah, I think they're good, and yeah, I get to see them on Saturday, so I'll have more on this next week. But I don't mind that spot for them, and I think you're right. I think they'll rise to maybe a 7 or 6 if they win out pretty convincingly.
Yeah, so they're the best 8 seed, if that has anything to do with it. They're my number 29 team overall. So yeah, just outside that, coveted top 25 teams. So that's kind of where they sit, and then they travel to Illinois because we're going to that game this weekend. Okay, number 2 is Indiana. We talked at length about them. They were last week, I believe I had them as a 7. They were the highest 7. Now they are up to the lowest 5 after their wins this past week. And again, if they keep playing at this level, they're only going to rise.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. We talked about it earlier. They played very good this week. They beat Purdue and Rutgers, both of them at home, but still, you take those wins any day you can get them.
Yeah, and like I said, there's not anything about this team we can say that we haven't already said. So jumping up, and same deal here. I know this is the only week really that we haven't gone in depth into Purdue, but they're still number 1. They have moved down to my number 2 overall seed behind Alabama. 4th in the net, 5th in Ken Palm, still the best resume in the country, and still far and away the best team in the conference.
Yes, I'd say they're the best team in the conference. They're going to win the regular season at least. They might get a scare in the conference tournament or maybe even lose a game, but they're, I think, convincingly the number 1 team in the conference at least. They may not get the number 1 overall seed, but in the tournament, but in the conference, they most definitely are.
All right, let's predict the games this weekend. As I was going through my preview and looking at the schedule this weekend, we have 0 rematches this weekend. Not a single game.
Which is wild because we're late into the season now.
What I did notice is that there are a lot of games that are being played today, or I guess on Saturday and Sunday, that are also each team's last game of the season. So you're going to see a lot of these games will be rematches at the end of the year. So that is an interesting tidbit. So if whenever we are predicting the last week of the season, we'll have a lot of stuff from this weekend to look back at. Let's start with 11 a.m. on Big Ten Network, 11 a.m. Central, 12 Eastern, which is the time zone the game will be played in because it is Penn State going to Maryland.
Penn State has struggled of late. I don't think that's going to turn around in one day. Maryland has also looked good, but just recently lost. However, I think playing at home, Maryland is maybe one of the toughest teams to beat. They're physical, and I don't think Penn State really has the facilities to stop the Terrapins. What would you say?
I agree with all that. I think I love to playoff teams regression. I love, seeing how a team played in their last game and picking the opposite to happen because of how chaotic this conference is. But Maryland coming off a loss, getting a home game, a tough loss at Michigan State compared to Penn State, who lost a home game to Wisconsin. It sucks, and I thoroughly enjoy watching this Penn State team play, but I definitely see Maryland winning at home. And again, we don't have lines yet, but likely cover as well if I had to bet. All right, next game, 1 Central, Fox Sports 1, State Farm Arena in Champaign. I will be there. Rutgers at Illinois. Rutgers sitting at 8-5 in the conference. Illinois at 7-5.
Illinois has what'd you say, a week off? Is it a little more? A little
We
less?
played Iowa on Saturday.
Okay, so it'll be a 1 week off. Their legs may be a little stiff from not playing in a while. I think Rutgers is still one of the top teams. Illinois is good, but I like Rutgers close. Maybe we'll call it 5.
Luke Goody's back, hopefully. I would imagine. He dressed last week against Iowa. I think he probably would have played against Minnesota. So that's exciting. This is a tough one, and I'm inclined to pick home teams. I think Rutgers is really good, and they're going to sit down and guard and give. I think Caleb McConnell is probably going. I don't know who the matchup will be because we have Shannon and Meyer, but I would imagine that whoever he isn't guarding is going to be tasked with carrying the offensive load. And I think it's going to be dependent on how hot that guy is, whether it is Terrence or Matt Meyer. I'll take us to win. And I'd imagine we're probably going to be slight, maybe like 2-point favorites. That's a hard one. It's basically a pick 'em, but I wouldn't maybe pick us to cover that. But I think outright I would pick Illinois.
All righty. Well, then let's move on to Wisconsin, Nebraska, in Lincoln, 3 Central. What's your thoughts?
Nebraska is hot, kind of. They just came off a 20-point loss to Michigan, but they're at home. They beat Penn State at their place. And now I've got Wisconsin, who's trying to get back to 500 in the league. I'll go Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin wins this.
Yeah, I'd agree. Nebraska's played back-to-back good games, even though one of them was a 20-point loss because Michigan just played the best game of their season. I don't think they can do that again, even though they're at home. I know they just beat Penn State at home, but I like the Badgers. Maybe not to cover, but to win, the Badgers.
Yeah, I could see this being the Greg Gard game where he schemes it up and he finds a way to limit Tominaga. I don't know. I think Wisconsin is at the point in their season where they can't overlook anyone. I don't think they're going to overlook Nebraska. I think they're going to give them their best game. And even though this Wisconsin team is fairly limited, I think that they're going to have enough to get to 500 in league play against Nebraska. And then I guess probably the game of the weekend in the conference is going to be Indiana at Michigan.
You think? I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, Rutgers, Illinois is.
Yeah, there's also and then you've also got Purdue at Northwestern on Sunday. We'll get into that one. I like Indiana outright. I'm gonna say I don't know. I probably think Indiana is gonna be, like I said, a close favorite. Again, not a huge pick. I don't want to pick them to cover, but I think the way they're playing right now, I think it's more likely that they're going to be able to keep it up than Michigan is. But if both of these teams are on, it will be the most exciting game of the weekend.
Yeah, I think Michigan's played well. They've played 3 good games in a row now, really good. The student in me here is just really thinks that we can pull it off after what we did to Purdue. That being said, I don't know if we can. This team hasn't played 4 games in a row that good this year. I'll take Michigan to cover whatever they set it at, but I think Indiana probably wins by 2 or 3. It'll be close.
I'm excited for that one-on-one matchup. We've seen TJD against Edey, and it was a duel. We'll see. I don't know if this season Hunter has not been on that level, but he's been the tier below. But I'm excited to see if he steps out of he puts one of his feet into that tier 1 group, and if he may go ballistic. And if, like I said, all these Big Ten teams that are big man dominant, if you can get that guy into foul trouble, that's going to spell some trouble for them. So if Hunter can get TJD 2 fouls quickly, or vice versa, you could see some issues. And I think that'll be the key, is foul trouble. How is the game officiated? I think will also play a big piece into this one. All right. And the Sunday games before the Super Bowl, we have a 1 Eastern, noon Central start in the barn. Iowa is going to Minnesota. Taylor, how many points do you think Iowa will win by?
We'll win by? Oh man, we'll put it at. I'll put it at 18. What do you think? Is that a good number?
That's a good guess. I could see this Iowa team having some struggles. I could see it being an ugly game, and I could see them winning by 26.
That's
I'm
26
just
is a
now.
large.
I'm joking there. I think 13 is reasonable. I think even if this Iowa team is shooting 26% from three, I still think they're going to end up being able to win this game handily.
Yeah, I think if it's within single digits, then I think Iowa should be scared.
I agree. And again, it's a road win, so that would be big. Any road win in this conference is huge, even if it is in Minnesota. All right, and then simultaneously running on CBS will be Michigan State traveling to the Value City Arena to take on the Ohio State Buckeyes, who are struggling.
Is it possible for both teams to lose a game?
I know you'd like that.
I would so appreciate that if this would happen. That being said, Ohio State struggles continue because Michigan State is just better than them. Just flat out better than them. And Michigan State will probably win this game by 8, 9, or 10.
I could see, with the way that this Ohio State team is going, I could see this being a game where Izzo just punches down on Ohio State to the point to where
this could be his message game this year. It's just, this is what we're going to do. And they just go out and beat them.
We're 8-6, whether that, we're probably in a tie, at least in a tie for 4th place, I'd imagine. And
that's the best they can end up at the end of the day.
We're a team that you don't want to trifle with, which I agree that they're not, and they have all the pieces. And like I said, whenever those guards are playing their game, they are a tough team to beat, maybe one of the 3 toughest in the conference. So yeah, I'll take Michigan State to win and cover on the road. And then the finale of the weekend, Purdue travels to Evanston to take on the red hot Northwestern Wildcats. That game will be at 2 Eastern, 1 Central on the Big Ten Network.
It's going to be a long day for the Wildcats. It's even if Nicholson, Barron, Adij, and Bowie all have the game of their lives, I don't think it's enough. I don't know how they're going to stop Edey. They don't really have a guy that's within 6 inches of him. I mean, Gillis and Morton are going to just run circles out there around their guards, whoever's in at the time. It's going to be it'll be much better than the Minnesota or Iowa State are going to get treated, but I still think I like the Boilermakers in this game.
This isn't the best guard matchup in the conference by any means, but this is maybe the most interesting guard matchup of the season. I want to see how the freshman guards in Lawyer and Braden Smith deal with this, opportunistic Northwestern defense that likes to get into the passing lanes and really defend you. And then on the other side, how are Bowie and Adij going to be able to take advantage of those guards' defensive weaknesses? And as much, even if they're able to do that to, the highest level that they're capable of, is that enough to stop the inevitable ED 40 and 25?
Probably not.
I don't think so. I think they could both go for 30, and it'll be a decent shot that Purdue still wins.
Yeah, I think in my opinion, Purdue's pretty much got this one on lock, but Northwestern can always shock the world. I mean, Purdue's lost twice now, so
They've shocked the world by being 17-7 and 8-5 by this point, without
yeah, nobody thought they were going to be there.
losing their two best big guys, and they're still very
I got to see
more
who they've
competitive
got
than
left.
ever.
Because if they can win, if they can get to 20 wins, I mean, they have what, 6 games, 7 games, 6 games left? 7?
It's going to take
They've
quality.
got 7 games left. If they can get to 20 wins, they're in the tournament for the second time ever.
That's absurd, an absurd sentence. But yeah, what Chris Collins has done with this team, he's done.
You don't think they're
enough.
making it if they get to 20 wins?
No, I think there's a decent shot they will. I'm saying regardless, what Chris Collins has done with this group to get them to this point, even at this season, he's done enough to earn himself a new contract and then subsequently wait until his contract year next time to do it again.
Yeah, he couldn't have picked a better day or a better year, to put it that way.
He's going to get extended because he's built this team. It was 2 years ago they had sparks because Bowie and Audige and Pete Nance, like this team, people thought it could be special. And last year was the year that they're supposed to be a middle of the Big Ten team in what was a significantly better league last year. And they weren't. They were bad. But now he's lost some of his talent and taken advantage of a weaker conference, and he's earning himself more money either here, or if he wants a job somewhere else, he would be able to get it, I'd imagine. But he does this when he's nearing the end of his contracts, and I can't wait to see what he does in 2028 whenever it's time for it to happen again.
They've got 2 wins, I think, relatively easy. They've got Iowa at home and they've got Penn State at home. They just need to pick one more off that they can pull, and then I think they're in, and he's rides off into the sunset in Northwestern history.
Yeah, as the only coach to lead them to the tournament.
Yes.
Which, again, is absurd. But yeah, for now, last 4 byes. If they keep this game competitive against Purdue, they're not going to fall. So yeah, that's what we've got this week. We're sitting at right about an hour, a little over. So this is as good a place as ever to call it an episode. Any final thoughts you have?
No, I'm just excited. It's going to be a good weekend of basketball. Let's go have a day.
Always. I'm excited to watch all 7 of these matchups, we haven't seen yet this year. So it will be exciting. Like I said at the beginning, like and subscribe the video, leave a comment if you have any recommendations, or like I said, any questions. We're happy to answer it. Give us a follow on Twitter for sure. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter. Also TikTok. Give us a follow there, as we're starting to be, a little more consistent on TikTok. We've got 3 videos in the past week. Look at us. It's good to finally get that rolling.
Yeah, I would agree. I can't wait. See what we got this week.
Yep. So yeah, we will see you guys around this time next week. This is awkward. I'm still recording. I'm gonna have to crop this. See you, everyone.